Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're jumping back over 2 centuries to the year 1805. We're talking no electricity, zero modern conveniences, just sheer willpower and community. We're going to focus on one specific family, Isaac and Martha Buck, and use their actual documented lives to unpack the gritty, really fascinating reality of exactly how people made it work back then. So, what did it actually take to survive in 1805 America? Honestly, it's a question that completely reorients how we think about our own modern lives. When we look at the Buck family, we aren't just looking at names on a dusty genealogical chart. We are looking at a literal masterclass in survival. I mean, what did it actually take to make it through the winter? To put food on the table or build a future when everything, and I mean everything, depended entirely on the physical labor of your own two hands? Well, to answer that, we've got to travel down the dirt roads of Worcester County, specifically to a town called Sterling, Massachusetts. In 1805, this was a booming, post-revolutionary agricultural hub. The dust from the War for Independence had finally settled, and the tough reality of actual nation-building had begun. For the people of Sterling, that meant turning the earth, planting crops, and literally building a life from the soil up. At the very center of our story is Isaac Buck, who in 1805 was 47 years old. But he wasn't just your average farmer. He was an 8-year veteran of the Revolutionary War. Just imagine the physical and mental toll of surviving 8 full years of military campaigns, only to return home and immediately, no break, settle right into the grueling, unrelenting rhythms of early American farming. Okay, let's dive into this. Just look at the staggering age span of the Buck children here. There's nearly 2 decades between the oldest, Polly, who had just gotten married, all the way down to 3-year-old Dennis. In 1805, having a large family wasn't just a personal lifestyle choice, it was an absolute economic necessity. Every single child on this list was a vital gear in the machine that kept the whole family alive. Section 1. The endless farm labor, the survival of the household. And this brilliantly illustrates what that looked like. Stepping out of the house and into the yard, the sheer volume of labor required just to keep this family fed and clothed is, quite frankly, mind-boggling by today's standards. This wasn't some cozy 9-to-5. This was a sunrise to exhaustion daily reality. Notice the division of labor. On one side, Isaac manages the heavy fieldwork, the plowing, animal husbandry. On the other side, Martha's work as the mistress of the house is equally massive, dairying, spinning flax and wool into cloth, tending the kitchen garden, and cooking every single meal over a massive open hearth. For Isaac and the boys, life was strictly dictated by a completely unforgiving agricultural cycle: spring plowing, summer cultivating, and fall harvesting. And Isaac definitely wasn't doing it alone. His 21-year-old son Silas and 14-year-old Plenty would have been right alongside him, swinging axes, mending fences, and bringing in the harvest. If you missed a step in this cycle, well, the family just didn't eat. It was that simple. Now, what really brings this reality home is this incredible detail. Think about a 3-year-old today. Got it? Now picture 3-year-old Dennis back in 1805. While the older girls, Martha, Sally, and Sophia, were helping their mom with spinning and cooking, little Dennis was already performing small chores under their watchful eyes. Labor wasn't just something you did when you grew up. No, it was woven directly into your absolute earliest childhood memories. Section 2. Education for Farm Children. Learning between the harvests. So you might be wondering, where on earth did school fit into this grueling schedule? Look at this stark contrast. Education in early 19th century Massachusetts was actually incredibly important, but it had to be completely squeezed in around the demands of the farm. Boys attended a winter term taught by men, which focused heavily on reading, writing, and practical math. Why winter? Because it was literally the only time they could be spared from heavy field labor. Girls, on the other hand, attended a summer term taught by women, focusing on basic reading and essential domestic skills like needlework. As for what they actually learned, basic literacy came straight from the Bible and Noah Webster's wildly popular blue-backed speller, but the arithmetic was incredibly practical. For example, the oldest son, Silas, actually used his math education to eventually become a carpenter and a millwright. It wasn't about abstract theory. It was all about learning the geometry and precise measurements needed to build a physical trade. Section 3. Civic Duty and Church, the wider community of Sterling. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it shows the bigger picture. Let's zoom out a bit, from the schoolhouse into the village itself. The Bucks didn't live in a vacuum, right? To survive, they had to fit into a larger ecosystem, which meant a whole lot of intersecting obligations. Look at this matrix. Sunday worship at the Congregational Church was basically mandatory social bonding. Town meetings were where you handled the nitty-gritty like road maintenance and taxes, while militia musters ensured the town was actually defended. These gatherings formed their ultimate safety net. And within this community matrix, Isaac held a very specific place. He wasn't a wealthy guy pulling the political strings of the town or anything like that, but his 8 years of service in the Revolutionary War commanded immense respect. In a small town like Sterling, your reputation and your character were basically your currency, and Isaac's veteran status gave him a really solid, honorable standing among all his neighbors.
Section 4. Community and Rural Entertainment. Finding Joy in the Labor.
Now, I know it's super easy to think their lives were just endless misery, strict church services, and grueling chores, but that misses a huge part of the story. They absolutely knew how to find joy, usually by turning their work into a literal party. A barn raising wasn't just construction, it was a massive communal feast. And the husking bees, neighbors would gather to strip corn, and finding a rare red ear of corn meant you earned kissing privileges. It's so cool. It was this brilliant, reciprocal web of mutual aid. They physically built each other's survival infrastructure, and they had a lot of fun doing it. The evenings had their own special charm, too. While strict sensibilities definitely existed, fiddle music and tavern dancing were incredibly common, and they served as vital courting opportunities for the older kids like Silas and Martha. And when they were at home, it was just simple evening amusements. You'd find the kids playing marbles on the floor or the whole family gathering around a warm fire to read aloud from the Farmer's Almanac. Section 5. A precarious balancing act, the golden era before the hardship. So the crucial point is this. As we start to wrap up the explainer, we need to look at the family's broader historical trajectory. 1805 was actually a temporary, delicate, sweet spot for the Bucks. The kids were old enough to provide massive amounts of labor, but Isaac and Martha hadn't yet been crushed by old age. Fast forward to 1820, and historical records show Isaac submitting a pension application that reveals significant financial struggle and real poverty. The stability they had in 1805 was sadly fleeting. This quote really just beautifully summarizes their existence. A household bound together by shared labor, religious faith, and community ties, working the land to sustain themselves. It perfectly highlights their profound, undeniable resilience. But it also highlights the inescapable reality of the era. They absolutely could not survive alone. Every neighbor, every child, every single chore was quite literally a matter of life and death. Which leaves us with this to think about. Today, we really pride ourselves on being completely self-sufficient, right? We live in this hyper-individualized world where we barely even know our own neighbors. But looking at the tight-knit, absolutely vital survival web of the Buck family in 1805, you kind of have to ask yourself, have our modern, independent lives cost us that incredible sense of mutual aid? What have we gained? And perhaps more importantly, what have we lost?